What would you do if you were insulted and threatened just because of the color of your skin, even if you were an unsung hero of the country? At a small supermarket, a high-ranking black female military officer just wanted to buy everyday necessities, but an encounter with a racist police officer pushed things beyond the limit. When the gun was pulled out, no one expected the woman to call in someone with enough power to change the situation. Follow this story full of tension and surprises. If you love this content, don't forget to click like, share this story with your friends and family, and especially subscribe to the channel so you don't miss the next meaningful stories. On a warm weekend afternoon, Olivia Harper, a high-ranking military officer who had just finished a long tour of duty, decided to stop by a small supermarket near her home to buy some essentials. She did not wear her military uniform, but chose a simple outfit, a white shirt, blue jeans, and sneakers. With such a simple appearance, no one could guess that she was one of the most outstanding military officers who had commanded hundreds of soldiers on the battlefield. Entering the supermarket, Olivia gently picked up her shopping cart and began to walk down the aisles. She enjoyed choosing everything herself, finding it a relaxing way to unwind after a stressful day at work. But just a few minutes later, an unusual situation caught her attention. At the end of the aisle, a man in a police uniform was shopping. Police officer Brad Taylor, tall with short hair and a condescending demeanor, picked up a few items and carelessly dropped them on the floor. It was a pack of noodles and a bottle of soda rolling around in the middle of the crowded aisle. But instead of bending down to pick them up, he just glanced at them and turned away, completely ignoring them. Olivia paused, watching the scene with distaste. As a soldier, she was trained to pay attention to detail and maintain a high sense of responsibility. Brad's behavior was too much for her to ignore. Stepping closer, she spoke, her voice calm but clear. "Excuse me, sir. You just dropped something. Perhaps you should pick it up to avoid inconveniencing others." Brad turned his head, his eyes cold and arrogant. He looked at Olivia from head to toe, sizing her up as if she were an unknown person. With a disdainful expression, he curled his lips. "Who do you think you are to tell me what to do? I don't have time to worry about such trivial matters." Olivia kept her cool. She wasn't used to being insulted, but she knew how to keep her emotions in check, especially in a situation like this. "You're a police officer. You have a responsibility to set an example for the community. Picking up things is not only polite, it also shows respect for others." Olivia's words did not change Brad's attitude, but instead made him more upset. His voice became harsh. "You don't need to tell me how to live. Who are you to talk to me? What does a woman like you know about the responsibilities of a police officer?" These sexist and belittling remarks caused a few people around to turn and stare, but Brad didn't care. He continued, this time with a distinctly sarcastic tone. "Or are you just trying to act smart? I advise you to mind your own business before others laugh at you." Olivia took a deep breath. She didn't want to cause a fight, but Brad clearly wasn't one to stop. "I don't want to argue with you, but if you keep this up, you're going to get into trouble." Brad laughed out loud, as if he had just heard a joke. "Trouble? What are you going to do? Call the supermarket manager? Or are you going to write a complaint letter to me? Listen, women like you should just keep quiet and stay away from big things. Don't make a fool of yourself." Brad's words became more and more insulting. Olivia could feel the eyes of the people around them on them. Some customers quietly took out their phones to record the scene. She took a step forward, looking straight at Brad. Her voice was calm but firm. "I advise you to think carefully before saying anything more. Not everyone is what they seem." Olivia's warning seemed to have no effect on Brad. Instead, he crossed his arms and looked at her with disdain. Look, I don't care who you are or what rights you think you have. You're just a common black woman, and I don't take orders from people like you. Those words were the last straw. Olivia felt anger rising, but she refused to let it control her. She knew this was more than just an argument. It was a test of her character and dignity. She looked at Brad, her eyes sharp, her voice stronger. I tried to remind you politely, but if you continue to insult me like this, you will be held accountable before the law. And just so you know, I'm not someone you want to mess with. Brad laughed and shook his head. The law? That's ridiculous. I'm a cop. I am the law. And if you think you can do anything to me, go ahead. The atmosphere in the supermarket became stifling. The confrontation between Olivia Harper and police officer Brad Taylor was not just a simple argument, but attracted the attention of everyone around. Some customers stood far away, quietly recording the incident on their phones, not wanting to miss anything. Brad, his face angry and his ego bloated, crossed his arms over his chest, not taking his eyes off Olivia. She stood there, calm and unflinching, her gaze sharp and authoritative. She knew she was dealing with a man who was not only irresponsible, but also arrogant and extreme. You really don't know who you're kidding, do you? Brad sneered, his voice full of mockery. Olivia replied, her voice calm but sharp. I knew exactly who I was dealing with. An irresponsible, rude police officer, completely unworthy of the uniform he was wearing. Brad laughed loudly, as if Olivia's words were a joke. He pointed at her, his voice rising as if to overwhelm her. Look, I don't need a black woman telling me how to do my job. Who do you think you are? Someone special? I suggest you leave before I make things worse. Olivia stared at Brad, her eyes unwavering. She took a step closer to him, her voice low but full of authority. I tried to remind you politely, but if you continue to use offensive words, you will not only face me, but also have to answer to the law. And just so you know, I am not just an ordinary woman. I am a high-ranking military officer who has devoted my life to protecting this country. And I will not hesitate to use my authority to deal with people like you. The confidence and power in Olivia's voice made some people around gasp in surprise. But Brad didn't believe it. He laughed louder, his voice full of sarcasm. Military officer, you? Don't joke with me. Do you think I'll believe this nonsense? Someone like you shouldn't be in such a high position. You're just trying to act powerful to hide your weakness. Olivia didn't answer right away. She crossed her arms and looked at Brad coldly. She was used to suspicious looks and sarcastic comments like that. As a black woman in the military, she had faced discrimination throughout her career. But that only made her stronger, never to be cowed by people like Brad. I'm warning you one last time, Brad. Stop now, or you will pay for your actions. But Brad not only ignored the warning, but also became more aggressive. He took a step forward, almost standing close to Olivia, his eyes full of challenge. You think you can scare me? Let me tell you, a woman like you should know her place. Don't act so high and mighty in front of me. Brad's actions stunned the crowd around him. Some backed away, sensing the danger. The climax came when Brad, in a fit of anger and arrogance, pulled a gun from his hip holster and pointed it at Olivia. I warn you for the last time, get out of here now. The entire supermarket fell silent. Some customers screamed in panic and ran for the doors, while others stood frozen, not daring to move. Brad stood there, the gun in his hand shaking slightly, but his eyes showing defiance. Olivia did not back down. Even with the gun pointed at her, she stood tall, her eyes unafraid. She had faced far more dangerous situations on the battlefield, and a man like Brad could not make her tremble. You just made the biggest mistake of your life, Olivia said, her voice low but powerful. She slowly took out her phone, calmly dialing a number she knew she could trust. The voice on the other end answered, and Olivia said briefly, "Mayor, I need you to come to the supermarket immediately. There is a very serious matter that needs to be dealt with." Brad looked at Olivia, his eyes wide with suspicion. He lowered his gun a little but kept his arrogant attitude. "Mayor? Who do you think you are, calling the mayor? Are you kidding me?" Olivia didn't answer. She put her phone back in her pocket and stood still, her eyes never leaving Brad. The crowd began to murmur. Some people called the police, while others continued to record video. Brad began to realize that the situation was no longer under his control. But instead of backing down, he continued to scream, "Everyone stand still! No one leaves until I finish speaking!" But Brad didn't expect that what he did only made the situation worse. Olivia looked at him, her eyes sharp. "You just made a big mistake, Brad, and I'll make sure you pay the consequences." The whole supermarket held its breath, waiting for something to happen. A vague anxiety began to form in Brad's mind, but he was not yet aware that things had gotten out of hand. And Olivia, with the calm of a veteran, knew that she would not let this go without justice. A car horn sounded outside the supermarket, breaking the heavy silence. All eyes turned to the door, where a black luxury car with the mayor's office insignia stopped. The car door opened, and a tall, middle-aged man with an authoritative appearance stepped out. It was Mayor Robert Clark, a man known for his fairness and respect for those who served the country. As he entered the supermarket, the air seemed to freeze. Curious and surprised gazes from the crowd followed his every move. Olivia straightened her back, her eyes meeting the mayor's for a moment, a fleeting understanding between them. Brad Taylor, still clutching the gun in his hand, turned his head when he noticed the mayor's presence. His eyes were initially surprised, then confused. He lowered the gun, but kept his defiant attitude. "Mayor Clark, what are you doing here?" Brad stuttered, his voice lacking in confidence. The mayor did not answer immediately. He walked forward, glanced at Brad, and stopped in front of Olivia. He nodded, his voice low and calm. "Colonel Harper, are you okay?" The entire supermarket seemed to hold its breath. The crowd gasped in shock, and whispers began to rise. Olivia Harper? A high-ranking military officer? No one expected the black woman in civilian clothes standing before them to be a high-ranking military officer. Olivia nodded, her voice remaining calm. "I'm fine, Mayor, but I can't say the same about the current situation." The mayor turned back to Brad, his eyes sharp and authoritative. He looked at the gun still in Brad's hand, then looked straight at him. "Brad Taylor, I just received a call from Colonel Olivia Harper, a woman I respect very much. She told me that you abused your authority, insulted her, and threatened her with a weapon. I want to hear from you right now." Brad began to panic, sweat beading on his forehead. He tried to defend himself. "Sir, this is just a misunderstanding. This woman caused trouble and bothered me first. I only did what was necessary to maintain order." The mayor narrowed his eyes, his gaze seeming to see through Brad's lie. He raised his hand and gestured to someone in the crowd. "You there, I see you're filming a video. Can I see it?" The young woman stepped forward, trembling, and handed the phone to the mayor. He watched the video from the beginning, in which Brad's every move was clearly recorded, from insulting Olivia with racist words to pulling a gun on her. Mayor Clark's face became solemn. He turned to Brad, his voice full of authority. "Do you think you can use your position as a police officer to threaten an innocent citizen, no matter who that person is? Not only did you abuse your power, but you also insulted an army colonel who has devoted his life to protecting this country. Do you know how serious your actions are?" Brad had nothing more to say. He bowed his head, stammering some weak excuse. but no one in the supermarket paid him any attention. The mayor signaled to a group of police officers who had just arrived at the scene. "Disarm Brad and take him into custody. I will see to it that he is immediately suspended and a full investigation is conducted." Two policemen stepped forward and took the gun from Brad's hand. He screamed and struggled. "No, this is wrong! I am a police officer! You can't do this to me!" But all his efforts were in vain. The crowd watched as Brad was escorted out, their eyes filled with satisfaction and relief. As Brad was taken away, the mayor turned back to Olivia, his expression softening. "Olivia Harper, I apologize on behalf of the city for the actions of this police officer. This is a great shame for our entire police force." Olivia nodded, her voice soft but powerful. "Thank you, Mayor. I don't want anyone else to go through what I just went through. Our system needs responsible and fair people, not abusers of power." The mayor nodded in agreement, promising that he would personally oversee the matter. As Olivia left the supermarket, the crowd lining the aisles applauded and thanked her. A few people came forward to apologize for not intervening when the incident happened. Olivia just smiled, feeling that the lesson today was not just for Brad Taylor, but for all the witnesses. The story of Olivia Harper and police officer Brad Taylor quickly went viral on social media. The video recording the incident became the center of attention, attracting millions of views and comments. The public unanimously condemned Brad's behavior while expressing respect and admiration for Olivia. Days later, Brad Taylor was officially fired from the police force, and a wide-ranging investigation was launched to improve culture and accountability within the department. Olivia Harper continued her work, regardless of the unexpected fame it brought. She knew that in the fight for justice, everyone must do their part, no matter the difficulty or challenge. Thank you for taking the time to follow the whole story. If you love this content, don't forget to click like, share this story with friends and family, and especially subscribe to the channel so you don't miss the next meaningful stories. Once again, thank you for being with us. See you in the next stories.